Kia ora, hello, I'm Philip Duncan. Thanks for joining us for our Thursday update, recorded on the 17th of October. Well, high pressure is finally over the top of New Zealand and we've got lighter winds in most places, a little bit of cloud here and there, and after a bit of a cooler start, most places are warming up quite nicely as we go through into the afternoons. Let's have a look at the animated wind map. You can clearly see the high pressure zone here with the lighter winds just to the east of New Zealand. That's bringing down this northeasterly flow for the top of the country. A bit cloudy, which is a shame if you're trying to look for that comet around sunset. Not so good if you're living in the north of New Zealand with that cloudier weather. The low out here in the Tasman Sea looks impressive, but it's really not. It's going to be falling apart over the next few days. So most places have a northerly flow coming down across the country, and that's why we are ending the week on a milder note than how we started it. So noon Friday, the high is just out to the east of the North Island, just north of the Chatham Islands. Mostly settled weather around the North Island as a result of that. But the low out to sea versus that other low up here in the tropics that's just off our screen, kind of linking up a wee bit, and that's why you're seeing that line of showers out at sea. And that comes into the northwestern corner of the South Island. Either as sort of a area of showers or a bit of patchy rain, sort of splitting the hairs between the two, but basically you've got some wet weather coming into the northwest. Now there might also be a couple of showers that bubble up during the afternoon here and there, perhaps a little bit further over towards the eastern side of the South Island. And it's worth noting that as we go into the weekend, that carries on, the afternoon risk of showers. So we've moved the time out to 3 p.m. rather than at lunchtime because that captures these afternoon showers forming in the southern part of both of the main islands. So there could be a thunderstorm or a burst of heavy rain. If you need the rain and it's over the top of you, it'll bring some relief for you. Otherwise, most places are actually leaning drier than average for the next week ahead, with the exception of Fiordland. Now the showers at the top of New Zealand likely to be lighter as they come off the sea, but again, they could get a little bit heavier into the afternoon, just depends on how the setup is at the time. So keep an eye on the rain radar if it matters to you. So through to Sunday now, again, the afternoon risk of showers, mostly into the North Island, and it doesn't show it, but there could be a few that bubble up along the western side as well as we go through the afternoon, maybe up here around Northland. Up to the tropics or the subtropics, south of Tonga, we've got that low. Now the good news for those who were worried that it was going to turn into a storm is it doesn't look as bad in the computer updates today, in the modelling. If you're a surfer though, it might be a little more frustrating because it's not going to get as deep as far as air pressure is concerned. But you've still got this easterly flow pushing into the top of New Zealand. It sort of curves around as a northwesterly for some areas. And by Monday, a slight northwesterly through central parts of the country. Otherwise, light winds around the North Island. Still a very light easterly flow, but that low is further offshore than our update yesterday showed you. And that's because the high pressure zone here, this big one that stretches all the way back to the Cook Islands, that high pressure zone, interesting shape, is going to be holding that low to the north of us. And so that's the reason why we're not seeing the same sort of forecast with it being closer to the East Cape area. Keep an eye on the modelling over the weekend. We don't have a video tomorrow Friday, so we won't be updating you again on it, but just keep an eye on the modelling from websites like Predict Wind. We've got them on our website and in our app as well. So you can see the low pressure zone and where it's likely to go. The other part to talk about, this cold front coming in on Monday. Don't worry if you live in Southland and you're worried about getting a burst of rain. It's not going to be a huge amount for you, a little bit of wet weather coming through. And by Tuesday, that's all that's left over on the west coast. A few showers, a little bit of rain moving northwards. Otherwise, most of New Zealand is dry. Low pressure to the northeast, that's the subtropical one, dropping southwards. The other one in the Tasman Sea kind of being cut off by the high pressure zone to the south. But the reason I've showed you this big picture map is to show you the low pressure zones down here, south of us, over the Southern Ocean. 950, even down to the 940 hectopascal range here, southeast of the Chatham Islands, and south of Tasmania, this low pressure zone says 977, but it's actually down to the 960s when you zoom in closer to it. So what does that mean? Well, it means by Wednesday of next week, high pressure is parked around Northland and near Auckland. So it's pretty calm towards the top of New Zealand, perhaps a bit of a southwest flow in Auckland and a northwest flow around Wellington. That northwesterly picks up the further you go down the South Island and closer to the mountains. As low pressure down here, 968, that's low air pressure, quite close to New Zealand, and the high pressure up here. So now we come back to the old classic windy westerly flow. And so potentially gale force winds, maybe severe gale on Wednesday of next week. It doesn't look like a major wind event, but it's just that return again of the spring westerlies blowing out from Tasmania and Bass Strait and across the southern Tasman Sea and right over the South Island and the lower part of the North Island. The high slips away a little bit next Thursday, and that encourages a subtropical airflow. So next week, again, looking pretty warm in a number of places. That is all from me. Because the weather is so quiet, we're taking tomorrow off, so we're going to have a 3-day weekend ahead of next weekend, which is another long weekend. But anyway, got to make hay while the sun shines, right? So no video from us tomorrow, Friday, but we look forward to seeing you again on Monday of next week. Have a great weekend.